Chapter 1. The day my husband, Stephen Turner, was diagnosed with lung cancer, I rushed to the hospital, my heart racing with fear. But before I even stepped into his room, I overheard something that made my blood run cold. He was talking about adopting the child of his first love, Anna Brooks. And then, as if that wasn't shocking enough, I heard him say, "Ethan, when I'm gone, everything I own will be yours." I froze at the door, anger bubbling up inside me. I couldn't hold it back. I stormed into the room and yelled, "And what about me? Do I even exist in your world anymore?" The little boy, Ethan, flinched and pressed himself tighter against Stephen, clearly scared by my outburst. Stephen looked at me, his face heavy with sorrow. "Faye, Anna gave up everything for me. If it weren't for what happened, she'd still be here. The least I can do is make sure her son is taken care of." I knew Anna had saved him all those years ago. And I'd been grateful, truly I had. If he wanted to give part of our fortune to her child, I could have accepted that. I would have understood. But all of it? Every last penny? What about me? What was I supposed to do? We've been together for over 8 years. 8 years of love, struggle, and sacrifice. And now he's planning to hand over everything we've built to Anna's son. He's even trying to teach the boy how to run the company, preparing him to take over the business after he's gone. So where does that leave me? I was the one who stood by him when he had nothing. I was the one who poured my family's money into his business, helping him turn it into the success it is today. And now, just when things are finally good, when we're no longer struggling, when we're finally wealthy, I'm supposed to be cast aside? A mix of anger and heartbreak swirled in my chest. I had stood by him through everything, yet it seemed I would never be as important to him as Anna. I didn't want to hear his excuses. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the room, refusing to look back. Later that night, I found myself at a bar, drinking away the pain. My phone rang. It was Stephen. "Come home," he said. I snorted, swirling the drink in my hand. "Come home? Why? So I can watch you play Happy Family with your new son?" There was silence on the other end, and I took the opportunity to twist the knife a little deeper. "You know, it's funny. You're so big on kids now. Weren't you the one who insisted we shouldn't have any? You even made me get my tubes tied. Remember that?" For a moment, all I heard was the sound of his breathing. Then finally his voice came, softer this time. "Faye, Ethan is Anna's child. He's different." Of course. I always knew Anna had a special place in his heart. I saw it back in high school, the way they were together like they were meant to be. If it hadn't been for money, I know he never would have chosen me. And yet, knowing all that, I still married him. I even went through with the surgery, cutting ties with my own parents because of him. I felt guilty, sure. But what choice did I have? My parents had my son, and Stephen had no one. No family, no support, just me. At least that's what I thought. I used to think his success meant something. I thought his loyalty meant something. I thought he was faithful because he loved me. But now I see it wasn't loyalty. It was just that his heart had always belonged to someone else. The realization stung, and I took another long drink, trying to wash it down. Stephen's voice came through the phone again, this time colder. "You're at a bar? What's it to you?" I shot back, my voice sharp. He must have sensed the bitterness in my tone because his voice softened again. "Faye, come on. You're not a child. You're in your 30s. Why are you getting so worked up over a kid?" He sighed, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. "It's not just about Anna. When I look at Ethan, I think about the child we could have had." There was a long pause, and then with a bitter laugh he added, "Maybe it's just the cancer. Maybe when people know their time is up, they get sentimental." He hesitated, then continued, his voice quieter than before. "I can't help but wonder. If we hadn't made the choice we did back then, our child would be Ethan's age now, wouldn't they?" A deep ache settled in my chest, and I could feel the weight of the past pressing down on me. Not long after Stephen and I got married, we found out I was pregnant. It should have been a joyful moment, but Stephen had always insisted on living a child-free life. He was adamant that we weren't going to have kids. I, on the other hand, was overwhelmed with emotion and wanted to keep the baby. After many arguments, he reluctantly agreed. But as we approached the last trimester, our world came crashing down. A routine checkup revealed that something was terribly wrong. The baby had a chromosomal abnormality. The doctors warned us that if he was born, he'd likely suffer from leukemia or worse, not survive long at all. Stephen tried to reason with me. I know you love him, Faye, but do you really want to bring a child into this world only for him to live in constant pain? This isn't love, he said. It's selfishness. In the end, I gave in. We terminated the pregnancy. And from that moment on, every time I saw children, I couldn't help but think of the one we lost. The one who never had a chance. I was so scared that the same thing might happen again that when Stephen suggested we go ahead with the surgery to prevent future pregnancies, I didn't argue. I couldn't bear the thought of going through that kind of heartbreak again. Years have passed since then, but now as Stephen brings it all back up, it feels like the wound has been ripped open again, and the pain is as raw as ever. And now he has the nerve to say to me, "Don't hold a grudge against Ethan just because he's Anna's son. Treat him like he's ours." I closed my eyes, trying to contain the rising anger. "Stephen, are you hearing yourself? That boy is Anna's son, not ours. He's not my baby." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and when Stephen finally spoke again, his tone was full of frustration. "So what if he's Anna's son? I love that boy and I want to adopt him." His voice grew colder. "Faye, I'm very ill. He's just a kid. Can't you accept him even for my sake?" And with that, he hung up. Stephen thought I was taking out my old resentment toward Anna on her son, but he never stopped to consider that he was the one who had been ignoring my feelings for years. Just as I was grappling with the weight of it all, the hospital called. Stephen had been in surgery and there were complications. He was now paralyzed from the waist down. I rushed to the hospital, and when I arrived, he was already out of surgery. The first thing he said to me wasn't a thank you or even a sign of relief. No. He looked at me and said that Ethan had been the one constantly by his side taking care of him. "A child has done more for me than you ever have," he said with a sneer. I stayed quiet, swallowing the hurt. For days I took care of him. Slowly, the distance between us began to close, and for a while things seemed to be getting better. But I never saw the next blow coming. Anna, who I'd been told was dead, suddenly appeared. Alive. She claimed that after saving Stephen all those years ago, she had fallen into a coma. Fearing she'd be a burden to him, she had let everyone believe she was gone. But now she was awake, and naturally she had come to see him. As unbelievable as the story sounded, Stephen didn't even hesitate to believe her. I couldn't help myself. I had to ask, "So if you've been alive all this time, why did your son end up with us?" Stephen's brow furrowed in irritation and his voice was filled with reproach. "Faye, Anna is my savior. Don't you dare insult her with your paranoia." It was like a slap in the face. I had been the one by his side when no one else believed in him. I had been the one who saved him from being poisoned at that wretched dinner party. I had called the doctors and done everything to make sure he wouldn't lose his voice forever. I had been constantly on guard for him, shielding him from the many enemies he had made along the way. He used to say I was his good luck charm, his protector. But now he was treating me like I was the enemy. Anna, standing off to the side, gave a soft, almost amused chuckle. "It's all right. I understand where Mrs. Turner is coming from." She turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "As for Ethan, my parents fell ill, so I had to leave him in Stephen's care for a while. Please don't misunderstand." Her words were gentle, full of polite apology, but the look in her eyes was nothing short of a challenge. It was like she was daring me to react, to lose my composure. I was furious, but what hurt the most was that Stephen was standing firmly by her side. At that moment, something inside me shifted. I could sense it. This woman was dangerous. I didn't know what her plans were, but I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let her win. Chapter 3. I was consumed with worry for Stephen, but he was convinced that I was just jealous of Anna, that my every action was driven by malice toward her. But that wasn't it at all. I just didn't want him eating the food she brought, greasy, spicy dishes that were the worst possible thing for his condition. His lung cancer meant he needed to avoid anything that could make things worse, and yet Anna kept bringing him exactly that. And of course, while she did, they'd sit together, reminiscing about the good old days as if his illness didn't matter. At first, Stephen would grit his teeth and hold back his frustration when I stopped him from eating the food. But after a while, his patience ran out. One day he snapped. His face twisted in rage, and before I could react, he flung the plate at me. "If I can't eat it, then you take it," he shouted, his voice trembling with fury. The plate struck me hard, cutting into my forehead. Blood trickled down my face, but Stephen didn't even flinch. His eyes were filled with nothing but disgust. "Faye, don't think just because you're my wife, you get to control my life. Then came the words that shattered me completely. If Anna hadn't disappeared, I never would have married you. The cruelty in his voice was like a punch to the gut. I knew Anna had always been important to him, but I never thought he'd throw that in my face, especially when all I was trying to do was protect him. I stood there, numb, watching them as Anna chimed in, her voice dripping with false innocence. "Stephen's seriously ill, Faye. Can't you at least let him enjoy the food he loves and what little time he has left?" Stephen's eyes softened and he turned to her, his voice full of emotion. "You've always understood me better than anyone." I felt a bitter laugh rising in my throat. After everything I'd done for him, all the sacrifices I'd made, this was where we'd ended up. I had stood by him through thick and thin, and yet in the end, it was all for nothing. From that day on, I didn't say a word when Anna brought him food. I let him do whatever he wanted. If he wanted to ignore the doctors, fine. I was done trying to save him from himself. It wasn't long before he ended up back in surgery, his body unable to handle the strain of ignoring his treatment. And when it happened, Anna had the audacity to turn to me and say, "Did you poison him? Is that what this is about?" I stared at her, disbelief turning quickly into a bitter laugh. Poison him? Or maybe, just maybe, this is what happens when you let someone ignore their doctors. Don't you think you know the truth better than anyone? Her expression hardened, eyes narrowing with anger. You're just a bitter woman holding on to a man who's already discarded you. Do you really think being his wife means anything? If I hadn't disappeared, Stephen wouldn't have given you a second glance. I'd heard these words before, but no matter how many times she said them, they still hurt. I felt the sting deep in my chest, but I refused to show it. I forced myself to stay calm, meeting her gaze steadily. Yes, he's tired of me. But what do you think he'll do when he finds out the truth? That you faked your departure because you couldn't handle being with a poor man? You ran off abroad to live your life and now you think you can just walk back in. Her expression faltered, her face paling. "How do you know that?" she hissed. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Her reaction was all the confirmation I needed. She recovered quickly though. Her lips curled into a cold smile. "So what if you know? It doesn't change anything. Stephen's mine. And in case you didn't figure it out, Ethan, he's Stephen's son. Stephen and my son." I felt a chill run down my spine. But I wasn't surprised. I had already suspected the truth. "I know," I said quietly. I looked into it. Ever since Anna had reappeared, I had been digging, uncovering every secret. I knew everything. And I was certain Stephen did too. He just chose to ignore it to keep indulging her. The thought made my blood boil. I looked Anna square in the eyes. "And you really think being the other woman is something to be proud of? You're walking around like this is some kind of accomplishment." Her smile faded, but her eyes gleamed with malice. "Oh, I'm the villain here? What about you? You're the one who take your own child's life. That makes you no better than a monster. How do you live with that?" I knew she was trying to provoke me, but I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me again. "Did you know that Stephen promised me he'd never have a child with anyone else? He faked the medical report. There was nothing wrong with your baby. He just didn't want it. And you believed him." I froze, her words hitting me like a punch to the gut. My mind went blank, my body turning cold. "You abandoned your own child," she sneered, her voice dripping with cruelty. "So tell me, who's the real villain here? You or me?" I shook my head, refusing to believe her. I had to hear it from Stephen himself. Sensing my doubt, Anna pulled out her phone and dialed Stephen. She put the call on speaker, her eyes never leaving mine. "Stephen, tell me, why did you lie to Faye about the baby?" Stephen's voice came through, soft and affectionate. "What do you mean, sweetheart? You know why? I promised you, you're the only one I'd ever have children with." Anna raised her eyebrows, triumphant. "But it was your baby, Stephen. Didn't you care?" His laugh was cold, almost heartless. "The only child that matters is the one you gave me. The rest? They're nothing." As his words echoed through the room, I felt my entire world collapse. Everything inside me turned to ice. Chapter 4. Anna left that day with her head held high as if she'd won some great victory. But I wasn't going to let her walk away that easily. I went straight to the hospital, determined to get to the bottom of what had really happened. I tracked down the doctors, the nurses, and anyone who had been involved in my diagnosis. And that's when the truth came crashing down on me. There had never been any talk of a genetic disorder. No one had said our baby would be born sick. Everything had been a lie. Stephen had fabricated the entire story, right down to the fake diagnosis, just to make sure I wouldn't keep the baby. It was like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I was furious, out of my mind with anger. I needed answers. I needed to know how Stephen could be so cold, so heartless. How could he have done this to me? To our child? But when I finally found him, all my rage turned to ice. There he was, sitting with Anna, their child, on his lap, smiling like the perfect family. He looked at them with such tenderness, such love, that it made me physically sick. At that moment, everything made sense. All those years he'd told me he didn't want kids, that he wasn't the father type, that we should remain child-free. It had all been a lie. He didn't want me to have his child. The only children he wanted were Anna's. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. My entire body went numb. I had given up my own child because of his lies, and now here he was, playing the doting father without a care in the world. The cruelty of it was staggering. How could he do this? How could he live with himself? The anger inside me burned so hot it felt like it might consume me. But I swallowed it down, forcing myself to stay calm. I couldn't afford to let my emotions control me. Not yet. I would make sure they both paid for what they had done. They would suffer for the life they had stolen from me. A few days later, Anna sent me a photo. It was of a diamond necklace, something she'd picked up at an auction for millions. "Stephen bought this for me," she wrote. "Aren't you jealous?" I stared at the message, feeling nothing but disgust. Stephen had been flaunting their relationship on his social media too, posting pictures of them on vacation and smiling in front of beautiful landscapes. They were traveling the world, living their best lives, while I was left to deal with the wreckage they'd created. I didn't respond to her message. I had no interest in playing her childish games. But after that, I made a decision. If they wanted to flaunt their wealth and happiness, I was going to hit them where it hurt. I went on a spending spree like no other. I bought out entire collections of jewelry, designer clothes, and anything that caught my eye. I spent millions, running up every credit card Stephen had ever given me. I had the purchases shipped to my private villa, filling every room with boxes of luxury goods. I knew it wouldn't be long before Stephen noticed. Sure enough, my phone rang. Stephen's voice was tight with anger, barely controlled. "Faye, have you lost your mind? What the hell are you doing spending that kind of money?" I couldn't help but smile at the irony. This was the same man who, when his business had started taking off, had handed me a credit card and told me to treat myself. Back then, I'd barely used it, wanting to be careful with his money, knowing how hard he was working. But now it all seems so laughable. I kept my voice calm and measured. "What's wrong, Stephen? Feeling a pinch?" "Funny, because I remember when you were struggling to get your business off the ground, I was the one supporting you. I was the one paying the bills and making sacrifices. I even ended up in the hospital with a bleeding stomach from all the drinks I downed on your behalf just to help you close deals. Do you remember that?" His voice rose in anger. "Don't kid yourself, Faye. Everything I've achieved, I did on my own." I didn't bother arguing. I just hung up the phone. As expected, he canceled the card shortly after. Not long after, I got the inevitable news. Stephen wanted a divorce. Anna, of course, was quick to rub it in, sending me another message. "You blew through millions like it was nothing. Are you that desperate for attention?" I couldn't help but laugh. "I'm his wife," I replied. "I have every right to spend his money. You, on the other hand, are just the other woman. So why are you getting so worked up?" Her response was quick and cutting. "So what? He's happy to give money to me." She sent more pictures, this time of their latest shopping spree, their fancy dinners, their luxurious vacations. "Don't get too comfortable," she added. "Soon enough, he'll divorce you and everything will be mine." But Anna had underestimated me. Before Stephen even had a chance to serve me divorce papers, I had already contacted my lawyer. I gathered every piece of evidence I had of their affair and filed for divorce first. If they thought they could walk all over me, they were sorely mistaken. Chapter 5. Stephen was livid. "Faye, do you really have to go this far?" I was sitting at the dining table, casually going through the numbers. I counted the money, including the millions my family had helped him with over the years and the expenses he incurred living with me back then. The millions back then are not the same as now. "Ethan, this is what you owe me." His company had been built on the back of my sacrifices. I had been the one whining and dining investors, playing the role of the perfect supportive partner while he built his empire. And now this This cold indifference was his way of trying to push me to file for divorce first so he wouldn't have to pay a single cent. He wanted to leave me with nothing, letting Anna hurl her insults at me. I leaned back in my chair and let my voice drop, sharpened with just the right edge. So, what's it going to be, Stephen? Do you want a divorce, or do you plan to keep Anna as your little side piece? Your choice. On the other end of the line, I heard Anna's voice rise, shrill and panicked. No, Stephen. Don't let her win. You can't let this spiteful woman get what she wants because of me. I wasn't interested in hearing her desperate pleas. I hung up the phone and smiled to myself. The longer Stephen dragged his feet, the more I would spend. If he froze my cards, no problem, I'd have the bill sent straight to him. Let him deal with the fallout. It wasn't long before I heard the news. Stephen had been so worked up that he'd landed himself in the hospital. Surgery, they said. Then of course Anna called me from his phone, her voice dripping with venom. Shameless. You witch. Stephen's in the hospital because of you. You've made him sick. I kept my tone light, almost bored. Oh please, Anna. You can pull that poor me act all you want, but the facts are the facts. I don't care what kind of feelings you think you have for him. As long as I'm still his wife, you're just the other woman, no matter how you dress it up. So remind me again, who's the shameless one here? Then came a tiny, angry voice, probably from her son. You're the shameless one. You're an evil woman. Why don't you just go away and let my mom and dad be happy? I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Listen, kid, I'll let that slide because you're just a child. But you should know your mom's the one who broke up a marriage, and you? Well, you're the product of that affair. So maybe think twice before throwing insults. I didn't wait for a response. I hung up and went back to my spending spree. I even started sending gifts to my parents, under the guise of a kind friend. They'd never accept anything from me directly, but this way they didn't have a choice. When Stephen finally got out of surgery, he called me, his voice strained and cold. Fine. Let's get this over with. I'll agree to the divorce. The day we met to sign the papers, he was sitting in a wheelchair, pale and weak. His eyes, though, still burned with anger when they landed on me. I stayed calm, unfazed. If you're ready, just sign. Anna was there too, standing beside him, her eyes icy as she glared at me. Can't you see Stephen just got out of surgery? Is money the only thing you care about? Stephen's face softened when he looked at her, warmth in his eyes. It was almost laughable. I couldn't resist a smile, though it didn't reach my eyes. What's wrong with wanting money? I gave this man 8 years of my life. 8 years and millions of dollars. And what did I get in return? Not even basic loyalty. So yeah, I'll take the money. Consider it payment for everything he stole from me. Stephen's expression darkened, but he said nothing. He signed the papers and his lawyer reviewed them one last time. From this moment on, Stephen said, his voice heavy, we owe each other nothing. Nothing? He owed me far more than money. He owed me a life, a future. But for now, I'd take what I could get. Once the divorce was finalized, I packed up my things and moved back into the apartment I had owned before we got married. I had it cleaned and restored just as it had been all those years ago before Stephen had ever entered my life. Back then, Stephen had been struggling to get his company off the ground. I'd been there helping him, working in his office, doing everything I could to support him. This apartment had been our home, the place where we started everything. When his business took off, we moved into a bigger house. But even then, he kept me at arm's length, never letting me get too involved. He said he didn't want me to stress, didn't want me to worry about the business. But looking back, it was clear, he didn't want me to have any control over the company. Now my family had distanced themselves from me and Stephen had replaced me with someone else. This apartment, once our home, was now the only place I had left. It was the last piece of my old life and the only place where I could start over. Chapter 6. After receiving the settlement money, I gave most of it to my parents. The remaining funds were donated to orphanages and nursing homes, and I began investigating Ethan's company. After the divorce, I discovered that the CEO who once harassed me, Matt, was now at Ethan's company. Years ago, I protected Ethan by drinking on his behalf, and Matt repeatedly made things difficult for me, even suggesting inappropriate exchanges. I refused, later learning of his notorious reputation for exploiting women with many victims. He was untouchable due to his connections, continuing to harass me until I smashed a vase over his head. I wanted to report it, but Ethan stopped me, promising to handle it. I let it go, but now they were good friends. I discreetly hired someone to investigate, but was almost hit by a car on the street. A car came speeding towards me and onlookers scattered in alarm. With a loud crash, the car hit a wall, the front end destroyed and the driver dead. Had a passerby not pushed me aside, I would have been the one hit. Dazed, I was taken to the hospital for minor injuries. The police said it was a car malfunction, but I felt it was a murder attempt as the car aimed straight at me. I thanked my rescuer and hired bodyguards for protection, even assigning people to watch over my parents. Further investigations into Ethan's company revealed disturbing facts. Many actors at his entertainment company, aged 12 to 25, had reportedly ended their own lives. These actors were at the peak of their careers, and the official explanation was depression due to stress. But my investigation showed these individuals came from poor families and were threatened by the company. Soon after, these young talents would inexplicably pass away. Amid this, news of Ethan's remarriage made headlines, receiving widespread blessings. Simultaneously, a famous actress's unsuccessful attempt to end her life also made the news, only to be quickly suppressed. I took note and sent someone to investigate, and posted wedding scenes on social media, gaining millions of followers. I remembered my simple wedding with Ethan, who promised a grand celebration later, a promise never fulfilled before our divorce. Now the grand wedding starred Anne and their son, and posted a photo of her pregnant belly, tagging me with the message, "I'm pregnant." These 4 words sparked speculation that Ethan had cheated before our divorce, leading to a flood of comments. Chapter 7. Facing widespread disdain from netizens and criticized my 3-year infertility. Ethan defended her, stating, "My ex-wife and I divorced privately." This implied my infertility was the reason for our divorce, prompting comments that a childless marriage ending was understandable. Some expressed disbelief that a once-loving couple could divorce within 3 years. Speculations arose that I might have been infertile, while others noted Ethan seemed healthy. Amid the backlash, I posted photos of their affair and revealed Ethan's lie about not wanting children, which led me to terminate my pregnancy. Now he had a 7 or 8-year-old son and another child on the way. Ethan furiously claimed I was lying, but I released proof and recordings of his deceit. The internet buzzed with scandal and they tried to blame me, but I wasn't backing down. Simultaneously, I contacted the actress who had survived her own attempt, learning she and others faced threats and coercion. Dozens had similar experiences, some involving minors. Among the photos, I recognized someone, a memory from years past. I informed Ethan's rival, Lucas, whose powerful family had once dismissed Ethan as reliant on women. Despite my initial dislike, Lucas's sister had disappeared years ago, prompting his departure abroad. I had met his sister a few times, never imagining her disappearance linked to Ethan. Lucas abroad questioned my claims. I cautiously shared the names of deceased actors, revealing his sister's involvement. Lucas swiftly returned and confronted me, his eyes cold. "What's your motive as his ex-wife?" Calmly, I replied, "As his ex-wife, I want his company ruined and justice served." Unable to uncover more on my own, I trusted Lucas's influence to dig deeper. After giving him a lead, I focused on my own life, tending to my garden. Days later, Lucas messaged, "Ethan's done." Initially puzzled, I saw Ethan's airport collapse video followed by news of his lung cancer diagnosis. Rumors spread that he brought his son on trips to groom him as a successor. With vultures circling his company, I knew Lucas was behind this. Chapter 8. I didn't expect things to unravel so quickly, but after the public exposure and immediately suspected me. "Did you leak the information?" I scoffed. "Do I look that idle?" In the video, Ethan lay in a hospital bed managing business from there. He weakly stared at me saying, "If you admit it, I won't blame you." I calmly replied, "I didn't leak it. It's in the agreement, I wouldn't say such things." He seemed relieved and I hung up. Though I didn't reveal it, others knew. Ethan's frequent hospitalizations raised suspicions, and Lucas's exposure only fueled the fire. Online rumors linked Ethan's company to criminal activities, including numerous celebrity deaths. Ethan denied everything at a press conference, flanked by shareholders and their child. But victims' families publicly accused him of heinous acts, igniting outrage. One elderly man cried, "3 years ago my daughter was so young. How could you do this to her?" Another parent sobbed, "My son lost his hands because of you and ended his life. How do you have the nerve to stand here?" A father pointed out a beer-bellied shareholder. "He killed my daughter. She was supposed to visit me, but the next day she was gone." More people accused them, only to be restrained by security. Ethan remained composed, dismissing them as money seekers. But then his own voice played, "We can get as many women as we want. Even if you prefer underage girls, we can arrange it." Ethan's face turned pale as the crowd erupted in anger, pelting him with vegetables and eggs. He insisted he never said such things, while arrogantly dismissed the accusers, calling them crazy money grubbers. However, the recently rescued actress stepped forward. "I can testify these threats are real. I attempted to end my life out of despair." Ethan was escorted away amid chaos, but soon accusations of child abduction emerged. Days later, Ethan vanished, only to be found with broken legs, his face scarred, claiming Lucas kidnapped him. Chapter 9. Someone recorded the scene, but I needed to see it for myself. I went there and saw Ethan furious. "He has been targeting me for years, and now I'm in this state because of him." He called the police, but it was he who got arrested. As I passed by, I watched coldly. He spotted me and pleaded, "You knew everything back then, right?" I smirked. "I don't recall any such thing." His face twisted with rage. "It was you. You and Lucas are working together to destroy me." He continued cursing as he was taken away. After his departure, his company's shareholders ran off with the money, leaving nothing behind. Countless creditors came knocking and tried to flee in the night, only to be caught on camera. She tried to deflect the blame onto me. "We just got married. If you want money, go after Faye." She even revealed the amount I received in the divorce settlement, causing many to come after me. I publicly shared my story of 8 years of betrayal from supporting Ethan to this point. I posted proof of my donations to orphanages and nursing homes, earning widespread praise. Netizens quickly realized they had been manipulated by and turned on her, bombarding her with insults. "This homewrecker deserves to be condemned." And messaged me distraught, "I'm a pregnant mother with a child. How can you let everyone attack me?" I laughed coldly. "Can't handle it? You didn't show any mercy when you tried to run me over." She blocked me and tried to flee the country, but I reported her, leading to her arrest. Her eyes were bloodshot, filled with hatred. "It's all your fault. I could have escaped if you hadn't intervened. Why didn't you die earlier?" It dawned on me that she was behind the car incident. She and her child were both taken into custody. Later, I found Ethan and told him everything. "After your company went bankrupt, she tried to flee with the money, leaving you in jail." Pathetic. At first, Ethan sneered. "I'm dying anyway. It's understandable if she wanted to leave." But when he learned that and didn't even hire a lawyer for him, he was furious, cursing her daily. Seeing me, he even begged for my help. I looked at his pitiful state and smiled slightly. "Beg me and I might consider it." His eyes filled with despair and he groveled. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have deceived you. Blame me, hit me, but don't abandon me." I remained unmoved. He continued to plead, "I know I was wrong. I'm only in my 30s and finally made something of myself, but now I'm sick and don't have long to live. My legs are always cold and in pain. Faye, for the sake of our past, please help me." I laughed coldly. "Why? Can't take it anymore? Do you know how painful it was for me to terminate my pregnancy?" Ethan looked panicked. "Faye, I've already been punished by fate. I have a little over a year left to live. Can't I just spend it in peace?" "Absolutely not. You haven't atoned for your sins yet." Lucas's icy voice came from behind. He looked at Ethan with a chilling gaze. "Don't rush. I'll help you get out. Prison is too lenient for you." Ethan's expression changed from pleading to fear. "No, I don't want to leave. I'd rather stay here. I don't want to go out." Chapter 10. Not long after, Ethan was released, but he was greeted by a mob of creditors. They cursed him furiously, demanding payment. Ethan tried to flee but was hit and fell, bleeding. This scene was recorded and went viral, causing a sensation. People laughed coldly. "Serves him right. Why should he live after ruining so many lives?" I didn't understand why Lucas released him until I saw the video he sent. It was chilling. Every time Ethan narrowly escaped death, he faced relentless abuse. His screams in the video made my blood run cold. But he survived because Lucas's men saved him. I told Lucas to stop sending videos. I had gathered enough evidence to put Anne in prison for the car incident. When she was taken away, her eyes were vacant and she muttered, "What will happen to my son without me?" She struggled and knelt before me begging, "Please take care of my son. He knows nothing." I felt a mix of absurdity and shock, but my face remained calm. "Sorry, everyone has their fate. Blame yourself." She collapsed, her face full of despair, while her son threw things at me, calling me names. After and went to prison, Ethan died 78 days after his release. He was found frozen in the snow, his body bruised and strangled by a vagrant. The vagrant was arrested, but no one pitied Ethan after his crimes were exposed. He had treated human lives with contempt, even abducting minors for exploitation. The public was outraged, demanding posthumous justice. With his death, everything was resolved. My parents, worried after the car accident and online abuse, reached out. "We told you to divorce him, but you didn't listen," my mother cried, hugging me. My father, hair white, looked at me with a weary but gentle smile. "It's okay now, child. Rest." I moved back with my parents. When they pushed for marriage, I refused, citing psychological trauma. They shook their heads but didn't force me. Instead, they adopted a child from an orphanage for me. My father, looking both worried and hopeful, said, "If you don't marry, what about having a child?" I patted the child's head and smiled. "All right, from now on, you're my little brother."